All right, so you shared this project report about an American Sign Language recognition system, and
Yeah.
it's really fascinating stuff. I'm really curious to learn more about how this all works.
Definitely, yeah. It's a pretty cool project.
Really gets to that idea of how can we make communication more accessible, which is
Yeah.
something I know we're both really passionate about.
Absolutely.
So let's maybe start with like a super quick, like, what even is this? For someone who maybe hasn't thought about this before,
Yeah.
what is ASL recognition? Like, why is this important?
So American Sign Language, or ASL, it's a fully formed visual language, right?
Okay.
It has its own grammar. It has its own syntax.
It's not just like English with your hands.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And
Okay.
so bridging that communication gap to people who don't sign is hugely important for inclusivity. So that's what ASL recognition is trying to solve.
Okay, so we have this student's system,
Right.
and it's all based on webcam footage, right? Like someone signs to their computer.
Yeah, basically you have your laptop and you're signing and the webcam is capturing it.
Okay.
And then the system can recognize what you're signing.
And this is using, it mentions something called MobileNet,
Yes. So MobileNet.
which I'm like, vaguely feel like we've talked about that before in a previous deep dive. It's like an image recognition thing,
It is. It's very commonly used in image recognition.
like recognizing objects and things.
Yeah, like if you've ever used Google Lens or something like
yeah,
that,
right.
it can identify what's in a picture.
Mm.
Like, oh, that's a cat, that's a dog, that's a houseplant.
So how does that, okay, so we have this model and it's trained on cats and dogs and houseplants. How does that translate to like understanding?
That's a great question. And that's where the magic of transfer learning comes in.
Okay.
So MobileNet, at its core, has already been trained on a massive data set of images, right?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of images.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, it's learned to recognize patterns and shapes,
Okay.
the fundamental building blocks of any image. So instead of training a brand new model from scratch,
Like just showing it pictures of hands and being like, figure it out.
exactly, instead of starting from zero, we're taking MobileNet, which has all this knowledge already.
It's like it's already gone to like image school.
Exactly. It's got a head start, right?
Yeah.
And so we can repurpose that knowledge to recognize hand shapes.
So instead of cat and dog, it's now A and B in ASL.
Precisely, yeah. And so this student's project really focuses on those hand shapes and movements
Okay.
to decode the individual signs.
So it can recognize like, okay, that's the sign for a low, that's the sign for...
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, cool.
But here's the thing, right? ASL, it's more nuanced than just hands.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right? Like facial expressions, body language.
Yeah, if I'm signing and I'm like, that's great versus that's great,
A huge difference.
it's a totally different sign.
Exactly. And so the student acknowledges this.
Okay.
This current project, it's a proof of concept. It's focusing on the hands as a starting point.
Right.
But they emphasize those other aspects.
Facial expressions and stuff.
Exactly. As essential for future development.
It's like you gotta like build the foundation of the house before you can start putting in like fancy light fixtures.
It's a really good analogy.
So we have this system, it's recognizing signs, but it's not doing like full sentence like Google Translate for ASL, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's an important distinction.
Okay.
There's a difference between recognizing, like you said, the individual signs versus like the grammar and the flow.
Like if I sign a whole sentence, it's
Yes.
not gonna be like, oh, here's the English translation.
Exactly. Exactly. This is really good at the former, not quite there yet with the latter.
So recognizing the words is one thing, but like being able to actually understand the meaning is a whole other...
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, that's fascinating.
It's like you can recognize all the words in a dictionary,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you understand like the entire language.
Right, it's like fluency versus just knowing the vocab.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And that actually brings us to a really important point, which is data.
Okay.
Because how do you teach a computer to understand a language? Like, how does this even work?
Yeah, like what are we feeding this thing to learn?
So the report actually goes into quite a bit of detail about the data
Okay.
that Mohammed, the student who wrote this,
Okay.
used to train this system.
Okay.
And basically, he used 3 different data sets.
Okay. So multiple choice.
Yeah. Each of these data sets has thousands of images
Okay.
of people finding different things.
Okay.
And he specifically mentions using Kaggle and RoboFlow, which if you're listening, you're like, ooh, I want to go check this out.
Right.
Those are great places to look.
Yeah, like data playgrounds.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
But I thought that was really interesting that he was using multiple data sets.
Why is that important? Why not just have like one giant set of like, here's all the signs?
So it's all about diversity data.
Oh.
Because Just like, people have different handwriting.
Right.
People sign differently.
Right.
Some people are very, animated. Some people are very subtle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that can affect how accurately the system can recognize what's being signed.
So he's training it on like all these different ways that you could sign the same thing.
Exactly.
So that it can like recognize.
Generalize better, yeah.
Okay.
To different people, different signing styles.
Okay, that makes sense.
And not only that, but different environments.
Right.
Like if you're in a brightly lit room versus a dimly lit room.
That's going to affect how the camera sees.
Exactly.
Okay.
All of that can affect the accuracy.
So the more variations, like the more chaos it sees in the training data,
The better it can perform in the real world.
the better it'll actually be able to be used.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we have this system. It's been trained on all this data. How accurate is it?
So,
In testing.
did it pass the test? It did pretty well.
Okay.
The model achieved a 96% accuracy.
Ooh, that's really good.
Yeah, which is really impressive.
For, I feel like for AI stuff, that's a good grade?
That's a very good grade.
Okay.
But there's a but,
Okay, there's always a but.
as the report, rightly points out.
Mm-hmm.
Real-world accuracy can be very different.
Oh, for sure.
Right, in a controlled lab environment.
It's one thing to, take the test when you know what's on the test.
Exactly.
Right.
But in the real world.
But when it's it's dark in here and someone's walking by.
Imagine, you're signing and someone walks past in the background.
Right, or a dog runs by or something.
Exactly. Or, the lighting changes suddenly.
Yeah.
All of that can throw off these systems.
It's it's never seen that before, so it's whoa, I don't know what's happening.
Exactly. So that's something that the student acknowledges as a next step. How can we make this more robust?
So it can handle those real world curveballs.
Exactly.
That are going to happen.
Yeah, because it's not enough to just have something that works.
Right. Yeah.
In a perfect scenario.
Right. It's got to actually work when you need it to work.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And he actually has some interesting ideas about how to tackle this.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, environmental variations are definitely something to consider going forward.
So it's we've built this incredible race car, but can it handle off-roading?
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so that's one of the next steps, making it more durable, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And it's exciting because it shows that the student's thinking beyond just the technical, can I get this to work in a lab setting? It's
can I get this to work in the real world?
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is awesome. And then there's actually another thing that I wanted to mention about this project that I think is really cool.
Okay.
That we haven't really touched on yet, which is the English to ASL converter.
Oh, right. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. So not only can it recognize sign language, but it can also generate it.
Whoa. Okay. So how does that work?
So basically, you can type in a phrase on your computer.
Okay.
And the system will show you, virtual avatar signing that phrase.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it kind of becomes this, two-way communication tool.
So you could use it to, learn ASL even.
Exactly.
Right. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it has implications for, accessibility, but then also education.
Right, breaking down those barriers in a bunch of different ways.
Exactly, yeah. And I just thought it was really interesting, this student was thinking about...
The bigger picture.
Yeah, beyond just the technical challenge.
It's not just a school project at that point. It's actually could be a really useful...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that actually got me thinking, the report mentions mobile integration as a next step, which is really cool. But I was thinking even beyond that,
Okay, what about 5 steps ahead?
Yeah, what if this was integrated into smart glasses?
Whoa.
Right? So you're wearing these glasses and you're seeing someone sign and it's boom, the translation is just right there.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Right.
That would change how you could interact with the world if you sign. That would be unbelievable.
It's like subtitles but for real life.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's really cool to think about.
It's such a good again, it goes from this school project to this whole world of
Right.
what if this was the norm. That's incredible.
And I think that's the beauty of these deep dives. We
Yeah.
start with this one thing and it just kind of opens up all these possibilities.
Totally. Well, on that note, this has been another incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing this project with me. This was so interesting to really get into.
Yeah, this was awesome.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring. You never know what amazing ideas are out there just waiting to be discovered. And we'll be back next time with another deep dive into the fascinating and the unknown